What is going on, everyone? We are back on the live stream. I'm Chris. This is James. Two people behind the Hot Takes with James podcast. James, before we get deep into the topic of this live stream, go ahead. Please tell everyone what's new, what they should be looking out for in this world of MLB this week. Take it from here.
Well, first and foremost, I'd like to say I was right with regards to the Blue Jays. No, it's too early. It's too early. Like, I'll just be completely real with y'all. Like, I'm really enjoying the way that the AL East is looking. Look, I know the Yankees aren't heating up, but we've talked about this on here before. Switch hitters, they take a little bit to heat up in the season. And people who are elite at bat speed, they also take a little bit to heat up in the season. So, looking at the Yankees team, that's the whole team. That's basically every single player on the squad. So it makes sense that they're not doing good right now. But, I saw it coming with the Blue Jays. This idea that they have this unbeatable offense, or this idea that they have this pitching staff that is just out of this world, it's not correct. It's not accurate. And we're gonna when we get into this show and we dig in deeper, we actually have a really interesting live stream for you here. We're going to be talking about players who have overachieved, players who have underachieved, players who are performing for real, like this is who they are, or maybe they're going to heat up later on, or breaking down whose production is real, basically, and whether some of the elite performers in the game can sustain such levels, as well as whether some of the guys that are some of the poorer performers in the game can rebound from some. But right now, I'm looking pretty good on my Blue Jays pick. I would like to see the Angels start to round into form, though. So before further ado, let's jump into Fangraphs. Now, Fangraphs, fantastic website. I've pulled up every single player in MLB who has, I believe it's 10 plate appearances or more. Yep, 10 plate appearances or more. So that's most regulars in and around the league. So we're going to break it down team by team. Chris, pick a team literally at random. Let's just have some fun here.
At random. I kind of want to pick a bad team that you don't like.
Yeah, please
do. What's the one come on.
Oh, the one that I hate? Oh, I wonder what that
No,
team is.
Not that team. Oh. Come on. No, you know what? You might as well. Just do the Astros.
Yeah,
get out of the way. Get out of the way.
The trash throws out of the way. The garbage cans, Like, I'll tell you, I have a fantasy baseball team, and I've been getting up and down production from my shortstops, and nobody in my league will pick up Correa. It doesn't matter how good his numbers are. Everybody realizes that this is just a toxic human being, allegedly. So it just seems that way, though. It seems that everybody just has this disdain for him, and I wonder why. So he's still a free agent. He's still out there, and teams are starting just about anyone over him in my league. So. Again, my league's a very small league, super, super small league, but it's very competitive. Everybody's really trying to get the best of the best players. And it's hard to get anyone these days who, anyone who's out there is not really the greatest talent. So you're not really operating with many players to, improve your club from. But anyway, yeah, so let's look at the Astros for a second, all right? So the Houston Astros, let's see. Now, Fangraphs, when you order it by teams.
I'm going to actually switch the screens that.
Yeah.
Just in case, because if you're going to screen share.
Yeah, I'm about to do a screen share. That's super helpful, yeah.
Yeah, if you're going to screen share, I want people to be able to see you still.
The numbers I'm referencing, they have to see it.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it's just, words, and then they have to go look up the numbers. It works better together, frankly.
Mm-hmm.
I've done a lot of podcasts where I've pulled up, information so I could show you guys, give you guys a visual aid in the past. But specifically in my work with baseball guy Sean, definitely check out his work. Got to prop him up. It's a really good baseball mind, really fantastic baseball mind. And honestly, he should be doing more content. So I hope he does. Because I want it. I want to hear more. I want to hear what his latest stuff is. I mean, he's a good friend of mine, right? But like, it's one thing, to hear it, me talking to him, right? It's a whole other thing for him to put, his reputation behind it and put it out there publicly. And I'm just really excited to see what content he has coming out next. He's great. And one of my closest friends as well. So great guy as well. I mean, we might end up featuring him on here in the future. I know in the past he's wanted to do like food reviews with me or like eating challenges. So maybe if I'm feeling up for it, I'll do something like that with him too. But he's a great guy. He's definitely a great guy. And Chris, I got to introduce you to him. So
yeah, totally.
Right, without further ado, here we go. I got Houston here. So I'm going to do a screen share as soon as the page loads because I'm doing it for – I'm changing the page from 30 players to 50 so that we know we have all of the Astros. Because I don't want to leave any of them out,
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's interesting. Kind of jumbled it. Wow.
1 second.
Yeah, no, you're good.
I was testing something.
Well, there we go. Perfect. Okay, without further ado, the Houston Trashstros. Ladies and gentlemen.
God. I can't.
I'm never going to stop. So, yes, these are the players in the league. And as you can see, HOU over here is the whole entire Houston team. So Maldonado's doing terrible. He's better than this, there's no doubt, but he's not exactly a bat. So don't think that he's going to really hit for you this year. Toro's interesting. He's put up decent numbers in the minors. He might be a guy that, while the league doesn't really know him, can actually do some pretty hardcore damage. I like Robel Garcia's swing. I always have. It's been interesting because he's kind of bounced around and no team has kind of just given him everyday duty. But, I mean, the guy has a big league swing and he does walk. I think he, maybe give him a season in AAA or something like that if you really don't feel comfortable giving him regular playing time. But I think that you give him, lineup protection, you bat him like 8th or something, you might have something there. Even if it's just from one side of the plate. Chas McCormick, he's kind of average-ish in terms of WRC plus, as you can see, 95 right there. But he was also operating from a place where there's like no average or on base percentage. The power is out of play, but outside of that, not much power either. But like I said, I think Robel will do better than this. I think Toro will do better than this. I don't like giving Astros compliments. I'm just being honest. You got Miles Straw, who's not doing anything expected. Tucker is an interesting guy. I think that given that he's such a pull lefty and he makes as much contact as he does, until his swing is in like perfect alignment, I think that this is something that this is about accurate of a line because he pulls so many balls and the shift exists right now. But that being said, I think he has a much better year from here on out, or even if he remains around this line for a bit, I think by July he heats up and then the line completely changes and he finishes maybe 20% above league average, something along those lines. Aledmys Diaz is doing fantastic, 20% above league average. Now, there's some concern here because the walk to strikeout rate is very drastic. But if you look at him in the past, he's been too patient in the past and it's capped his ability. So now with a profile that makes so much contact, and it's also worth mentioning that Aledmys Diaz He had in the zone coverage statistic that used to exist on Baseball Savant. I hope they put it back up there. I mean, last time I checked, it wasn't there, so maybe it's there now. I'll check that tonight. I mean, I really hope it's back, but I'm willing to bet that a team actually bought it from them because of how valuable it is. But Diaz had fantastic zone coverage, I think, the season before last season. And when you turn that into patience, that you'll lose power, but you'll gain, more of an ability to understand what pitches are coming to you. And then when you turn that back into aggression, there can be higher levels of power, even with, more strikeouts. And I think that's what we're seeing here. What's really interesting about Ledmys Diaz is that his Baseball Savant actually says he's even better than these numbers. So he might actually get better as a couple of weeks go on over the next, like I said, couple weeks, as the next few weeks. Jason Castro, do not believe that it is for real in any way whatsoever. I mean, he's been a guy who strikes out, he walks a little bit, and he does hit home runs, but he's not going to put up a 300 ISO. His walk rate's also not going to be 17%. So you're looking at either a strikeout rate that's going to sustain or get worse. With home runs and walks about to drop off the table, he's not going to be anything close to 60% above league average. I think you're lucky if he's league average. You're lucky if he puts up a 100 WRC plus. So Castro's going to fall off. Now, Altuve is really interesting because a lot of Altuve's out-of-play power completely dropped off after, not knowing what pitches were coming to him. Big surprise. Literally, how do you expect to sustain any sort of level of power if you don't know what pitches are coming to you? So, and you did rather, and you were going from knowing what pitches were coming to not. But he has recovered a good deal of his speed, and he has recovered a decent amount of his contact ability. So from what I see, from what I can, observe, and also StatCast showed that he's faster than he's been in years. It very much looks like he's okay sacrificing a large portion of his power just because he knows he'll make a lot of contact, and he knows that he has enough speed now to beat out balls on the ground and keep his batting average on balls in play well above 300. And that's what's working for him right now. I could see this being a sustainable approach for him. He's still a scumbag. Then you got Yordan Alvarez, unbelievable middle of the order hitter. I don't believe he was involved in the cheating. I believe that was before he came around. I mean, I could be wrong actually, but I don't think he was there for it. And I know he wasn't there for 2017 or 18. That's for sure. 2019 is a little bit. I got to check that. I got to recheck that because I don't want to give you guys wrong info. Talking about wrong info, a couple of podcasts ago, I think I said that Clint Frazier and Austin Meadows were rivals from New Jersey. I was wrong. It was Georgia, and I don't want to confuse the two. Georgia's.
You were wrong. What?
Hey, look, I always double check to make sure that I'm not saying, giving people any incorrect stuff. But, that's not exactly like I'm evaluating a player's ability. It's just like I mixed up states, and I mixed up states in an unforgivable way. No one should ever confuse New Jersey for Georgia. So I'm calling myself out here, okay? So just to, get that done with, hopefully leave that.
But at least you circle it back and you're like, you remember.
Yeah, I was like, I think I said that. Oh, no, that's not good. That's not good. Because I knew I was going to get hated on either from, Georgia or New Jersey. Actually, Georgia would hate on me. New Jersey would be really happy with me, I think.
What?
Like, yeah, Meadows and Frazier, they could totally be from our state, so. Anyway.
Moving on.
Yes, moving on. So we got Alex Bregman, Correa, and Brantley and Gurriel as the last four Astros here, okay? Bregman's solution to recovering from, cheating, and then having to go back to, playing an actual sport. His solution was to put on about 25 pounds of muscle during the offseason. And he came in, he put on that muscle, and he messed up his hamstring. And then he came back from that, and then he messed up his hamstring again. And now he's, at the big league level, and he's putting up a line that's about 6% better than he put up last year, 30% above league average. But he's doing it by, quite literally becoming more of an aggressive hitter. Like all of those walks, all of the, I'm going to walk 15% of the time, and I'm going to walk more than I'm going to strike out. Those days are done. He's not capable of being that type of hitter anymore. This is a guy who's now a contact bat who's, being very successful on the balls that he's hitting in play. He's not striking out very much. Looks more like a doubles hitter who might hit maybe 12, 13, 14 homers over a full year, maybe 40 doubles. That's pretty good. I mean, the WRC plus speaks for itself, Anytime you have a guy who's, 20 or more % above league average, you're looking at a guy who's somewhere between, the number one spot, depending on how much speed and contact they have, right? And basically like the number 6 or 7 spot. That means guys who are going to do damage. If you have a guy who's in those spots and they don't have, a WRC plus above 120, it can work, but you have to have either an aggressive profile that covers zone, or you have to have the kind of profile where once you do get on base, your legs do the talking. And, maybe when you add that to your offensive ability, it makes you just a league average, hitter or slightly above a league average hitter. But those types of hitters, they're there to get on base and score for the guys who do hit doubles, homers, do more damage. And a lot of those guys are singles hitters. So even walks from those types of guys will move them into scoring position. Second to home is like first to third for those types. So it's very doable on a single at that point. So, but yeah, like I said, Bregman has recovered his ability by sacrificing him being one of the best patient hitters in the game, going back to being a contact, doubles profile. That's, good enough at those skills where he's 30% above league average. Like these guys have found a way to still be good hitters. Like Correa's patience is completely gone as well. He's done a very similar thing to Bregman. It's just contact. I'm
gonna clip that. And I'm gonna make that like a rerun on the YouTube, because you're talking about the Astros right now, and you're like, these guys have found a way to actually be good hitters, and I'm like, whoa, wait a minute, what do you?
They've sacrificed things in order to do it. Now here's the thing, okay? Correa, Bregman, those Altuve, Gurriel, they had success before they cheated. That doesn't mean their character is fine. That doesn't mean I would ever think about trading for them, putting them on my team. Same thing with Springer. Springer's not on the team anymore, but he was on those 2017 Astros. He's a big part of it. Same thing with Jake Marisnick. He was on those teams as well. So I don't care if you found a way to recover, that you can hit. There's plenty of terrible people in baseball history who found a way to be a good player. And I hope that these people get plunked. Like actually, I hope that they get hit by pitches for the rest of their careers. Like that's how I feel. I don't think that they're even though they have the ability and all of that, and they've been good, before they cheated, they don't deserve to be big leaguers. I want them banned for life, and I'm never going to stop talking about these guys, honestly, until they are, because they got no consequences. I mean, if they had gotten like a bit like a season ban, right? Or maybe like an 80-game suspension or a 50-game suspension, but nothing. That's my problem. There's no consequence here. And they did one of the things that, people have been banned for life for so much less. So
true. It is a really
me.
mysterious. It is a really mysterious thing.
It disgusts me that they found a way forward. And I'm going to say this here. And Chris, I want you to link this in if you can. I don't know if you can, edit things together or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
They may be cheating. They may have found another way. They may be back on cheating, but doing it in like a more subtle way.
Allegedly.
I'm not going to put it past these guys. And honestly, since they're performing, I'm gonna assume it. I'm going to assume that they're cheating because they don't deserve any less from me.
But that's kind of like that thing where it's like you got caught once and it's like, so I'm always going to kind of like doubt you. Like from your perspective, it's like I'm always going to kind of doubt you because like it's like you fooled me once, but like I don't want to be fooled twice. So it's not even like a steroid thing because sometimes people get caught because there's certain things in their system and they didn't know that in their system. Like for instance, Chris Davis with a C or whatever. Chris Davis, from the Orioles, he got caught for like an elevated testosterone level or something. Because he had like ADHD medication and he didn't realize that it would do that or whatever. He was still suspended. And so like it wasn't even his fault. It was completely accidental. It was from medication that he was supposed to be taking. The doctor said he could take. All of that was available for MLB to look at, and they still suspended him because there's no. I'm sorry, you should have said it beforehand. It's a zero tolerance policy. But cheating to win a World Series is not a zero tolerance policy. I think that's insane. The one thing I do want to say, though, is, if you're looking at a player and really just trying to figure out whether they're cheating and see whether, there's something going on here, no one really makes my ears peak up, like more than the next guy I'm about to talk about. Like I only wanted to talk about Correa for a second because he's basically the ringleader of the clown show, like the meme where like your face becomes more of a clown. Like you should just put, Gurriel, Altuve, Bregman, Correa, and then put the clown, parts on that face because it's a clown squad, like the whole team, just clowns. And I think, I don't know if you want to shut this down or if it's not a good idea. I think after the next player, maybe we should do a little jumping around from different team to team. Maybe we should only like touch on certain players and jump around. That way we can get like kind of like an even larger overview.
For sure. I love that. Yeah, we can we'll just order it by WRC Plus. And we'll do the top like 20 maybe. We'll do the bottom 20, something like that. Give you guys a little taste, at least of our evaluation process, or my evaluation process. Now, Gurriel's the guy that I wanted to bring attention to because Brantley's doing great. I'm really glad that Brantley's, actually becoming more aggressive to tap into whatever, power he has while he's still effective because he's starting to get older, and there's certain things that he's starting to decline in, Brantley. But Yuli Gurriel is walking 16% more than 6% more than he's striking out. He's walking 16% of the time, 15.5% of the time. That's like the highest walk rates in baseball, like right there with everyone. And his strikeout rate does not exist. Okay? At the same time, he's hitting for so much in play and out of play power that he's batting .360. His on base percentage is .460. His slugging percentage is .580. His WRC plus is 100% above league average. I believe he's 34, 35 years old. Like I know that he was called the Cuban Derek Jeter, but this guy's been in the big leagues for years. He's been with the cheating Astros. This is why I have a little bit of a suspicion that they're back on the it's not even really juice, is it really? It's the robot juice. It's you know what I mean? It's because it's information, you know. But I don't know what to call it. You know that it's cheating. It's just trash.
Just the info. Just the info. So for a little background for everyone, the very first podcast episode James and I did together was actually about the Astros cheating scandal. And it's actually how, like, after James and I first ever met, it was one of the first things James told me about. 'Cause I had never heard about the cheating scandal and, like, how they were using kind of, like, tapping and rhythmic kind of, like, I want to say instruments. The way I want to explain it is instruments throughout each stadium when they played in to identify when a certain pitch was going to come in and stuff like that. So,
well, it was not just that. I mean, everybody in the league thinks that they totally have buzzing bandages, under their uniforms.
Yeah, and you've sent me those videos. You've
exactly. Yeah. The thing that comes off Chirino's bat, and if you're looking at Altuve really closely, and all of his excuses. Come on,
Mm-hmm.
But there's that one. Then there's the one with the trash cans banging. The actual. I'm sorry. That's just you want to talk about irony. A trash organization where their name's the Astros, where you could literally just go trash stros, right? And they're going to cheat, and they're not going to cheat by being like, oh, well, we have, like the Diamondbacks do this thing where they have like a car giveaway or something like that. So they have a car out there, like it way like 480 feet out in the outfield beyond the concourse or whatever. And I forget how you get the car, or the player gets the car, or how it works. But there's a car out there, right? And dude, it's just, oh my goodness. The Astros are. Where am I going with this car thing? Because I'm telling you,
honking or something. I don't know if this is the first time you've brought it up.
Yeah. Okay, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So you could have the car honk. You could maybe change the lights on it, or do something subtle, or classy or whatever, so that you knew what pitches were coming. You could do something with the car, or maybe you could, I don't know, pretend that there's a light out, or that you're having trouble with a certain light in a certain part of the stadium.
That's really,
there's a million different ways to do this, and they actively chose to hit a trash can. Like you know who you are. You know who you are. It's like that person who says, "I'm not stupid," when nobody ever said you were stupid. You just know you're stupid, and you're like outing yourself. You know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
It's perfect.
Yeah, I just wanted to convey that's what you were constantly referencing.
Yeah,
it was their cheating scandal.
Yeah, they could. No. What I was trying to say is that, I was trying to think, why am I referencing this car? I'm trying referencing the car because, if you were going to cheat, right, and you were going to cheat by, using signs that a player could pick up so that they know what pitches were coming, right? Why would you lower yourself to, anything that's, that could be looked at in that light? It's
mm-hmm.
It's just, you're going to bang, trash cans knowing that your strategy to win is a trash strategy. And that, your team is knowingly accepting it and participating in it and making excuses for it. So they're being trash human beings. And your team is the Astros. So, you don't think that they're going to start calling you the trash stros and, start making, putting your team's, star on trash cans and bringing those to the to the stadium and banging on those and whatnot? I don't know. It just they were so stupid. So anyway, let's start with, what should we do? Should we do XWOBA because it's expected numbers, what the numbers should be, or should we do what the current numbers are? Let's do what the current numbers are. Because sometimes I don't agree.
Stick with current numbers.
I don't agree sometimes. Yeah, I don't agree sometimes with XWOBA. And WRC plus right now will echo a lot of the other numbers that we're going to be referencing here.
Yeah.
I've used WRC plus for many more years than I've used XWOBA because XWOBA breaks down into expected slugging and expected batting average, which are much more important individual statistics to look at than the cumulative, which does not tell you approach. I mean, WRC plus also does not tell you approach, but it tells you how much above league average or below league average a player is. And then when you factor approach in, you can see versus different caliber of pitching how they can perform, step up or step down to certain levels. And of course, you then have to know the player's trajectory as well. But this is what we do, or this is what I do. Okay, let's see. Here we go. Andy Young's gotten all of 9 games, and he's going off on the league. You want to talk about a guy who's got polish? He's got a lot of polish. He could do really well against the league for a few weeks, but then he's going to start having trouble versus righties. Overall, he's mainly a guy who hits lefties better. It's good that he's playing for the Diamondbacks, though, because they can kind of move him around and, use him in certain platoons. They do have enough lefties where they can do that. So I do think he might actually have a pretty decent year, but he's not going to obviously do anything like this. I think you're probably looking at and hoping for maybe 20% above league average from him for the season. Chris Owings was doing great, and it kind of makes sense that Chris Owings was doing as great as he was, mainly because he's a guy who spins the ball a lot. When he makes contact, the ball really spins a lot off his bat. And in Colorado, if you have a ball in the air and it's spinning, it creates wind resistance off of the thin air, and it'll just keep going. So I think Owings could be, kind of having a career revival in Colorado, but I don't know if it's going to be like, a kind of revival that lasts, once the league adapts to him. Usually these guys, they'll come back, they'll have a really good, year or maybe, 4 months, and then the league will figure them out and they'll fall off. And Owings never really was a monster at the plate. So while I do think he could have a decent year for them because he's the type of hitter who will do well in their ballpark, I don't think that anything close to these numbers is realistic. I think what you would like to see from him, what would be a good season, somewhere around 16 or 17% above league average. That would be ideal to expect and get out of Owings. Anything more than that would be shocking. A little bit less than that's okay. You don't want him, obviously putting up anything in the mid 80s WRC plus. That's a little bit too far down. Buxton's finally breaking out. Former number 1 prospect in all of baseball. Elite base runner, elite defender. He's doing incredible things. Again, when you're looking at guys who are doing this great, the production's never for real. Like, no one's 195% above league average, with a 295 WRC. That doesn't happen. Those numbers do not happen. So he's going to come back down to earth quite a bit, but even if he ends up being like 50% above league average or 60% above league average, that's one of the best hitters in the league. And I think that could be a realistic expectation. Trout's having the best year of his career. Again, these numbers aren't sustainable either, but he's Trout. So, best player in the game, clearly. I think Buxton could challenge him for the MVP this year if Buxton stays healthy. But even then, it does look like Trout's having his best year ever. And I think the only reason I say Buxton, can compete with him is Buxton's the superior base runner, superior defender. Don't believe me? Go check highlights. Go check the numbers too. Then you got Cattell Martay, who's been really killing it. I don't think these numbers are for real either, but I do believe that now he's back, as in like once again hitting from the left side of the plate and the right side, rather than just the right side. I think last season that was mainly because it was such a short season. He couldn't get his left-handed swing going. But this year, entering the year, he was ready. So that's pretty cool to see. Sandoval has been getting a little bit better now for about 4 years. So since the league has just kind of forgotten about him. It makes sense that he's kind of going off. I don't know how sustainable this is. I mean, as the season goes on, he's going to take at-bats a lot more relaxed. I mean, that's kind of how Pablo is. It's when he has to prove that he can still do things, and he has to prove that it's a big moment. He's coming. He has to produce in those moments. That's usually when he does his best. And right now he was right. I want to say right now. I mean, like, he's now got his playing time. Like, he's going to be played. If you put up these numbers, it's not like you can't be played, or you won't be played. Even with Riley on board, they might as well give Riley time in the outfield. But now that he's got a spot, I think that he's kind of going to take the foot off the gas, which is typical Pablo. But I've always been a Panda fan, and I think that if you are a team that's not a big market team and you want to fill a spot like a first base or DH, I don't really like him at third, but I guess he's a good player to kind of get. But you want to give him lots of lineup protection. That's the big thing with him, and you want to take the pressure off of him, but not in a way that's going to cap him. So you want to have him be in the middle of the order, but you don't want to have him be in the middle of the order. You want to have him maybe bat. Actually, that'd be really interesting batting him third, because there's so many key moments that he would be up for. Maybe you would, because he would take things more seriously in that spot. I don't know. It's kind of a crazy idea because Pablo Sandoval third, given the numbers that he put up in the last couple of years, it's nuts. But I don't know. He needs the pressure. He needs to have that drive because it's in there. The ability to hit like as good as most people's in there, but he just doesn't really sustain it usually deep into most years. And in deep into most years, when it does come out, it's big moments when he does put that pressure on himself. So that's an interesting idea, to say the least. Tyrone Taylor, the league does not know him. He's going to come crashing down to earth. But Milwaukee might as well get as much as they can out of him, while they can. Milwaukee manages their roster very oddly. I'm not a fan of the way that they manage it, but they do have quite a few players that I like. So Yerman Mercedes, while the league doesn't know him, do your damage, kid. He hit like a 500-foot home run or something like that the other day. He absolutely went nuts on AAA pitching last time he was down there. And also, I believe in spring training, I think it was an 18 something. It was either 18 or 19 spring training. No, it was 19. In 2019 spring training, you can look this up on YouTube. He hit like a monster shot. Like, I don't know, like, if in terms of distance, but in terms of speed off the bat, I mean, that thing was crushed. So I've known about Yerman for a few years. I've had a couple long-term concerns about the bat, but it makes total sense that while the league doesn't know him, with that swing and that profile, that you're looking at a guy who's going to really be producing, at least for the next maybe month, 2 months. Huascar Yona is a pitcher. So good for you for showing up on here. But yeah, no, he's not going to he's not going to do this for the year or anything close to this. They got Carson Kelly. Now, Carson Kelly's interesting because Carson Kelly's a very polished player, which means he should hit average righties, to below average righties. And also he's a righty. So he's not just a righty, but specifically a righty who crushes lefties. So as the ability to hit righties more has come around, it was reasonable to assume that he would come around offensively at catcher. But I'll tell you, these numbers are insane. I never expected anything like this. I didn't even have him on like my top catchers list entering the year. Like, I was not expecting anything like this, and it could be in part because he's in a platoon with Steven, I believe his name is Vogt, even though it has a G in it. I think the G is silent. And Steven Vogt is a lefty catcher. And with Carson Kelly, having trouble versus some of the better righties, he doesn't have to face them now with Vogt in the system. And I think Vogt's actually had a pretty decent start to the year as well. So I think that tandem has really allowed Carson Kelly to settle in and kind of take off. And it wouldn't surprise me if he had a middle of the order year and just happened to be one of the guys who just slipped underneath my radar. So, good on you for doing that. There's not usually very many people per year that do that. Vlad Jr. is doing exactly what I thought Vlad Jr. would do. Obviously 118% above league average is not exactly going to last, but could this guy finish the year 80%, 85% above league average? Absolutely. I think you're looking at one of the best hitters in all of baseball. I've been saying it for a few years. Now he's doing it. So, it's not the first time that's happened. Definitely will not be the last. But no, Vlad is a personal favorite. I mean, I kind of talk about him in that way because, I love this kid. I watched him in the Arizona Fall League. I've been following him since he was a kid, with Senior. This guy is going to do incredible things with the bat for his whole career. Then you got Acuna, who's also getting even better at hitting, which that's surprising me. I thought that he had kind of reached his cap, and he's finding a whole nother level. So I'll count myself as being wrong on him already. I'll even say that, just being fair. Higashioka, he's going off right now. Very polished catcher. Do not believe this is real in any way whatsoever. BABIP looks real. That's about correct, I could see the walk rate being real. I could even see the strikeout rate being real. But a 483 ISO, that's not going to happen. He's not a bad backup. I'm not the biggest fan of him. But a lot of people have it in their head that he's usurped Gary Sanchez. And it's just Gary Sanchez isn't really hitting for power right now. Once he starts hitting for power, then you just put him in. It's not like Gary Sanchez is not going to get at bats. It's not like you're not going to play him at all when you're playing Higashioka. It's not how catcher works. Also, you could probably get Gary some reps at first while Luke Voigt is out, although Voigt is probably going to be back within the next week or two, to be honest. Anyway, moving on. JD Martinez, right back to the old JD Martinez. He's going to be a middle-of-the-order hitter. There's Yuli. I do not understand this batting line unless Houston's cheated, okay? Then you got Jesse Winker. He's doing great for my fantasy team. There's no way that BABIP is real, so he's going to come back down to earth, but he's also a middle-of-the-order hitter. And I don't have to say anything with J.D. Davis. Of the people that we've looked at on here, okay, Sandoval is striking out about as much as J.D. Davis. But Sandoval is also walking 11% more, basically. And Sandoval is also doing that to get to an ISO of 500 and a BABIP supporting that as a switch hitter, mainly batting lefty, mind you. Has to deal with the shift being slow as well. BABIP is 375. Now, J.D. Davis does not have to deal with the shift, right? And he is batting 550 on balls in play. On balls that he's putting into play, he's batting 550. That is so beyond unsustainable, especially when you're looking at an aggressive profile like this. I mean, don't get me, that's fair. Aggressive profiles do carry high BABIPs. But for a guy as slow as him, with as predictable a batted ball spray as him, I do not see this being anything close to accurate. And I also feel like the league is about to adapt back to him. He's been in the big leagues just long enough for the league to, just about to be getting, how to get him out. So I don't believe that this is at all real for JD Davis. I mean, the BABIP says everything, 550 on balls in play. League average for a season is usually about 300. So batting 550 on balls in play, That's insane. That's just I keep looking at that. I can't look away. Anyway, I'll try. We got Buster Posey back in the league. It's beautiful that he's back to performing. I do think it's realistic to think that he could have another year since the league hasn't seen him for a bit, and right now having just a fundamental swing, having a fundamental approach, and the tools underneath it. That's basically all you need in order to produce in a year like this, because any sort of leverage swings or any sort of swings where you're getting to on top of the ball and you're trying to create backspin or under the ball and you're trying to create angle, the ball changing seems to have really hurt a lot of batters who don't have ideal swings or who are meeting the ball too far back. There are some batters who have less than ideal swings who have rebounded from last year, but that's mainly because the ball change started last year and they started sucking last year. So they knew that they had to make changes. But a lot of guys who succeeded last year are having trouble this year because I think the ball's changed further. At least they've said that the ball is going to change from last year to this year already. So I think that's kind of what we're seeing. I think a lot of guys are adapting, and a lot of guys who had to adapt last year did so during the offseason, like, say, JD Martinez. Yerman Heredia, I don't think any of this is real. I think the walks are going to go into the strikeouts. I think the BABIP is completely not real. I think the ISO is going to fall off. I think it's because people haven't really seen him. But I think this is like a really short-term, little hot, period of time for him. Nelson Cruz is doing what Nelson Cruz does. Middle of the order bat. Bryce Harper is doing what Bryce Harper does. Middle of the order bat. I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't think that either of these guys' lines are going to last for the whole year. I think you're probably going to see them, 140, 150, 160, 170, depending on how good of a year they have. Same thing with Justin Turner. I don't think he's going to be anywhere near this. Actually, I think Justin Turner probably is going to be somewhere between 125 and about 142 in terms of WRC plus. Those are the numbers that I'm referencing, by the way, WRC plus. Solak, however, I don't think the BABIP is real, obviously. No 400 BABIP is ever real. The highest BABIPs ever go is like 370, 380, and that's like very rare. Only a couple people do that a year. Solak's BABIP is obviously not for real. He's changed his approach to be more aggressive, to reach some more power, which is cool to see. But I don't think this line's for real. I do think, though, that he may have found another level, and you may be realistically looking at a guy who's, 25% above league average, WRC plus wise, by the end of the season. But I don't think that, 40% above league average is realistic, or 35% above league average is realistic. But Solak is a gamer, and if you haven't seen him play, watch him play. He's not a very good defender, but when you watch him play, whether you watch him at the plate or you watch him on the bases, you'll see what I mean by, he's a gamer. And it's not necessarily that he's great at playing defense. Like I said, he's not. It's more along the lines of that he's capable of playing defense basically everywhere. He's not great at it, but he can play first, second, third, corner, outfields. It wouldn't surprise me if he could play center. He would be great there, but he could probably do it. Danny Mendick can also play everywhere. And there you go, Jacob Degrom, another pitcher. My goodness, he's doing everything right now. The guy's batting 460. He's slugging 540, basically. His on-base percentage is 460. He's 80% above league average. I mean, look, as a pitcher, it's going to completely go away, but he's also pitching to an ERA of 0.3 or something along those lines. So, DeGrom's doing insane stuff right now. Maybe he's trying to give Ohtani a run for his money. I'm kidding. Ohtani's going to massively out-hit DeGrom by the end of the season, by the end of the month probably. All right, so then we got Danny Mendick here. Mendick is interesting. He's not going to be anything close to this level of hitter. I mean, if you already look at the fact that he's got no power and the fact that the BABIP is 545, I mean, Like that's not anything close to realistic. I mean, 545 might as well be right up there with JD Davis's 550. And nobody in baseball walks 24% of the time. So the walks are going to go into the strikeouts unless he starts, changing his profile. I mean, it looks like he's okay being super patient and relying on singles so that he can get on base for other people, which that makes sense to me. But I also don't think that he's going the walk rate's going to drop and it's going to go somewhere. And where that's going to go is the strikeout rate. And the BABIP's going to drop too. Although the ISO is so low that I could see some of the BABIP going into the ISO, but it's also so low that when the BABIP does go into the ISO and also the BABIP drops down to normal, batting average luck, he's not going to be that much of a hitter. I mean, he could be maybe 5% above league average, which is great for a utility type, which is what he is, but not middle of the order at all. Walsh, I've said this before the season, the league doesn't really know him. Very polished. I think he goes off on the league, at least for the first, 400, 450 at-bats, or at least against righties if you have him in a platoon all year with Pujols or someone. And I think he has a really good season, but once the league adapts to him in a year or so, I don't think that he's nearly going to be as good as, I think you're looking at another Mike Yastrzemski situation. You see Yastrzemski right now is coming back down to around a league average hitter. I hope look, because he's got the lineage of Carl. I hope that Mike, finds out another level, or maybe they put him in a platoon and he comes back to his old numbers or whatever, but I think a lot of it was based off of polish. He was never regarded as a high-level prospect with regards to tools. At any point, he repeated AAA. It's a similar situation to Kevin Biggio, another guy with lineage, another guy with MLB lineage. He's a guy who walks a lot. He's probably got some level of doubles power, but there are a lot of people who are under the impression that he's a middle-of-the-order hitter because he had fantastic numbers in 2019 in AAA, which juiced ball AAA that year. And then when he came up, he did really good juiced ball MLB. His scouting report at all points in the minor leagues, Biggio was as a really good super utility player, a.k.a. a Danny Mendick type. Lots of walks and some doubles power and can play everywhere, which is still a very valuable player. So I don't know why Jays fans would be super upset about that. It's just they want him to be so much more. So I guess I understand to a certain level. It's some people get upset when you confront them with facts that they don't like, but that's fine, right? To be oh, I don't like that, but I accept it. But to be told facts that go against what you like and to say, well, these facts are irrelevant because I don't like them. I think that there's a bit of a disconnect there when I talk to Jays fans because they just really want their offense to already be elite and incredible, and they want their team to already be developed and everything. It's not there yet, man. Just have a little patience. And then they get upset at me because well, what do you know about patience? You're a Yankee fan. And I'm like, well, that doesn't really change what I'm saying. It's I'm a human being too. I'm capable of thinking. I've got a brain, so I can evaluate your players. And I can tell you what you got going on. And, you don't have to like it, but I'm not going to lie to you. So there's a little bit of a disconnect. Narvaez, I'm thinking he crashes way back down to earth. He's a slow, lefty-hitting catcher, pull hitter, who's now a very patient bat. I think that the BABIP is completely unsustainable, especially in an era of the shift. And everything else kind of I could see. He's been a guy who's got a pretty good eye at the plate. I could see the strikeout rate going up a tiny bit. So I do think that this is going to be a guy who can be an above league average hitter this year, but he's probably close to maybe 20% above league average, maybe 18%, maybe 23% above league average than, truly being middle of the order. And I say that because you're going to platoon him. He's a lefty hitter. or at least he's better from the left side, I think. I don't think he's a switch hitter. I think he's just a lefty hitter, a rare lefty catcher. But because you're platooning him, that's why I think that he could be 20% above league average. Outside of a platoon, if you're playing him also versus lefties, he's not going to do well. But I think they're managing his playing time well, and I think he's also probably going to have the best year he's had in a few years because he's trying to hang on. He's had a lot of competition at catcher, and he is kind of the best of them. But I mean, like, it's not like they wanted to turn to him, you know? So I guess he had to show them that he could still do something. I just don't know, like, if I'd say anyone who's a lefty and as slow as him could put up a BABIP like anywhere above like 320, 330. I mean, unless you're really hitting the ball, which is he's not that caliber of hitter. You know, that's not his game. If you're slow like that and you're a lefty and you're a pull hitter, all three things, I don't think you can do a 330 BABIP. I don't think you could probably do a 325 BABIP. So there's going to be a big fall off for a guy like him. Nico Horner also, I think that, you know, the BABIP is, you know, ridiculously unsustainable. And I also think the walk rate's going to go straight into the strikeout rate. I think that that's unsustainable. He's a guy who the league didn't really know, so I get why he's doing pretty good here over the first 7 games. He's also a guy who's kind of like, I have to prove myself to get more at-bats. So I can understand from that perspective too, but I don't think I think that by the time Horner is actually like truly an above average big league bat, I think we might be looking at near the end of August because he was a top prospect, but I believe that he was also rushed. And if you look at his minor league numbers and you look at his progression, it certainly seems pretty, you know, like the evidence is pretty clear. So Colton Wong, he's doing fantastic away from St. Louis. Obviously, these numbers are not going to last. I could see the walk rate last. I could see the strikeout rate last. He's not a power hitter. He's never going to be a power hitter. So the ISO here, the BABIP, something's got to give. One of these numbers, probably both of them, are going to drop off. But that's fine. Colton Long has always been a guy who what he was supposed to do is get on base for the rest of the lineup to drive in. That's always what he's been. Contact bat, who walks a bunch, and puts up on a year-to-year basis fantastic BSRs, base running number, right here, and puts up absolutely unreal defense at second base. And is also a lefty, so in theory, when you platoon him, he could still get a full season of at-bats. So either he's just found another level or he's going to come crashing down to earth as well. Usually he's about league average of a hitter. I could see him maybe being 5% above to 10% above if he is a good year. So expect something like that from Colton Wong rather than 70% above league average. I talked about this last year. Evan Longoria is very underrated, criminally underrated. And if you look at his advanced numbers, his StatCast numbers, his expected BABIP, or not expected BABIP, expected batting average, expected slugging percentage, like his numbers analytically have been getting better for about 3 or 4 years running. So it looks like something happened with Longoria that tanked his ability to produce for power a few years back, like about 4 years ago. And he's recovered his ability to do so over the last, I'd say, 2-3 seasons. I still don't think he's the same guy that he used to be. And I still think that ballpark is absolutely handicapping Longoria's ability to produce at these levels, say, for a full season. A team in the American League East needs to add him. A team with lineup protection. And I know I'm a Yankee fan. There's no room on the Yankees for him. And look, I'd hate to see this, but it's also, I'm going to admit, it's a perfect fit. If you were to put Longoria on the Boston Red Sox, you could move Devers over to first base. You could trade Dal back. I'll tell you that. Like he's a Joey Gallo type, power or strikeouts, and that's super risky profile. But if you got Longoria with the Green Monster back in the AL East, with the Red Sox lineup protection, Bogarts, Devers, Verdugo, Vasquez is now hitting. I mean, you get the idea. All of a sudden, you're looking at another really great year out of Longoria. It's just, I don't think that he's going to be able to sustain these types of power numbers over a full year in that ballpark. His strength is to hit the ball to right center, and that's the deepest part of the Giants ballpark. And also, I believe in spring training this year, he had plantar fasciitis. So it's not like you really want him doing tons and tons of running for you either. He's a hitter, and he's going to play third. And you just hope plantar doesn't come back. You hope that plantar fasciitis doesn't become a reoccurring thing for him. But I'm going to make my way through just the guys who are bordering on 70% above league average. And then I'm going to go to the bottom of the league. We're going to talk about the worst hitters in the league and whether we can expect a recovery from them. So first, Olsen. Now, Olsen's really interesting because Olsen, for most of his career, Olsen's been a very patient hitter. He's been a guy who's going to strike out a lot, not a lot, but like 24% of the time, which is a reasonable amount. And he was going to walk about 11% of the time-ish. This year, it seems that Olsen has felt comfortable enough at the big leagues where he's just swinging away. He's not worrying about working the count. He's just worrying about hitting the ball and pulling it and being successful on hitting it hard. And as you can see, the walk rate's dropped, sure, but this new approach has absolutely eliminated his strikeout rate. And now all of the power that was dormant in his bat is coming up. I didn't see this coming. Good job, Matt Olson. I do want to say, though, that I don't think he's 70% above league average. I think probably the year that he has this year will like I said, he's surprising me. So before I saw these numbers, before I saw how he's changed his profile, my old estimate was that he was going to put up a year of, at best, about 25% above league average. My new estimate, given the improvements that I'm seeing him make, given the type of profiles that I prefer, A, aggressive profiles with B, contact, and C, power, and he's a lefty on top of that, I could see him be 45% above league average this year. So total credit to Matt Olson. Just got to hope he keeps it up. You got Yadier Molina. This is completely unsustainable. The only way I can imagine these numbers being anything close to real is if all of a sudden Yadi decided to hit the gym during the offseason and get in ridiculous shape. And then on top of that, Yadi said, you know what? I'm absolutely okay doubling my strikeout rate just so I can hit the ball hard again. And if that's the case, if he's done those two things, God, I hope he stays healthy. Please stay healthy. Because, Yadi with his defense doing anything close to middle of the order hitting, I can't. That's just, with everything else that we've seen this year, all the other talent that we are seeing throughout the league, and this is a really fun year. You want to talk about fun years? This is one of the funnest years that I've seen in a very long time, even with a couple of players getting hurt, missing the season. To add on top of that, like a bounce back, prime Yadi Molina season. Oh my God, that's just icing on the cake, my guy. And then lastly up here, we got Ohtani, who does not care about strikeouts. All he cares about is power. And honestly, I don't have a problem with him keeping up this profile. Ohtani's a very rare player. So any profile that allows him to reach his power at the plate, I don't care how many strikeouts, and I don't care how the strikeout to walk ratio ends up working out. He's an ace on the mound. He's a lefty ace that throws 100 miles an hour. So if he's able to reach his power levels that he has dormant in him at the plate, I don't care about any of that other stuff. And he's able to do it here and here. And these are both like, I wouldn't say necessarily a 350 ISO is sustainable for him, but I could see him put up a 285 ISO with a similar BABIP to what he has right now. You could be 60%, 55%, 45% above league average, but I'd be shocked if he's below 40% above league average on the season. Like, I think that you're looking at one of the 10 best lefty hitters in the game. And honestly, I might have to look that up on, like, put that under a microscope, him and Harper and all these other guys, and just try and figure out, okay, who is the top 5 lefty hitters? Because there's a possibility that Ohtani is a top 5 lefty hitter. All right, now let's move on to the guys who've been terrible this year. Absolutely bottom of the barrel.
You never hold back. This is one thing that I'll say is that you never hold back when players are not doing well or when teams are not doing well. It's like never subtle. You're just like, let's just talk about how terrible.
Well, I mean, you can't really justify any of the numbers that I have like right in front of you right now.
Mm-hmm.
Like Brandon Woodruff is a pitcher. Okay. So like the first, let's see. First 9 guys are pitchers. Camargo is a hitter, and he's 165% below league average. Yikes. He's a switch hitter, so switch hitters, they take a bit to get both swings going. But I don't know how much, the guy is 165% below league average. I think that's not going to work for me. I don't know how to look, it's early in the season. He only has 11 plate appearances, but that's really sad. I expect more from him personally. Camargo has a decent swing. He does have good power. I think he's probably going to finish maybe around 80%, or not 80%, but WRC plus of about an 80. So about 20% below league average, something along those lines, maybe 15% below league average, 85. So you're looking at significant improvement from Camargo expected, but I don't think, and I don't see that. I don't think he can get that for Atlanta. I don't see that happening, that he's going to, have playing time open up for him for Atlanta. Like, I almost feel like Johan Camargo needs to get sent to like Baltimore or like the Rockies. The Rockies. Send Camargo to the Rockies. He'd do so much better in Colorado's ballpark. Switch hitters, because they have to have roughly similar swings from both sides, at least most of the time they do. Because it's you have to have both swings going. For some reason, they spin the ball more when they hit the ball. They redirect the ball more when they hit the ball. So I think a thin air environment park like Colorado might help him, but that's bad. Orlando Arcia had been getting better for like 3 or 4 years running per WRC plus before this season. And then the Brewers just kind of gave up on him after 11 plate appearances of him being 153% below league average. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, that is as bad numbers as it gets. But the guy was less than 10% below league average last year. And the guy has fantastic numbers in the playoffs at the plate. And the guy, routinely makes good plays in the field, can clearly play shortstop. Like, the guy can run the bases, like I don't understand why Arcia was kind of given away by the Brewers. And he hasn't really played at all for Atlanta since. So that's kind of interesting. You have these 2 guys from Atlanta. I think Arcia is going to take off. I don't expect anything like this. If Arcia can ever get like significant everyday playing time, he might even be league average, which is wild for a guy who's 153% below league average right now. Pat Balaka or Val, I think I said it.
Wait, if he's below league average, how is he league average?
Become
Oh, become league average.
league average.
Become
I think
league average.
like right now, Arcia is 153% below league average. So for me to say that there's a possibility that if he gets everyday playing time, that he's going to be a league average guy, that means he has to improve
a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, 153% below that number. So that's it's hard to do. But again, like I'm not saying that because he's been actually, if you look at him on a year-to-year basis, Arcia has been getting better for I think it's 3 or 4 years now. And actually, I want to make sure that I quote myself right there. It's not WRC plus that he's been getting better each year at with those years, although he had a WRC plus basically right around league average last year. It's during those years he decreased the strikeout rate, kept stable the walk rate, and increased his out-of-play power while keeping stable his in-play power. So if each year you lower your strikeout rate without hitting your walk rate, and each year you raise your rate of balls hit out of play, as well as doing that, without sacrificing power on balls in play, you're clearly getting a lot better yearly. Like it's a progression that is observable. And when you're looking at a guy who's a shortstop, and you're looking at a guy who has the tools and has been in the past to be a plus base runner and a plus defender, it's just a little interesting why the Brewers gave up on him. And now he's in Atlanta playing behind Swanson, playing behind Albies, and playing behind Sandoval, and playing behind Riley. And I just wonder, how is Arcia even going to get the playing time that he needs to finish his development? It's kind of sad. I mean, maybe Dansby Swanson continues to have a rough time, and you start playing Arcia just to give him a chance in there, and Arcia takes off. But that's basically what Arcia is hoping for. That's I don't know how realistic that is. So then we got Pat Balaka. He's put up great numbers in AAA, but he's always been seen as kind of a quad A guy, like a guy who did great in AAA, but would never really hack it at the big league level. Although it's worth noting his analytics for both this season and last season think that he's a lot better than this. So that's worth noting. He could kind of take off on people based on that information, but there's also a lot of reasons that those types of advanced analytics, expected analytics, get thrown off, because expected analytics, a lot of the time they don't take into account the shift, because they can't look at your defense for every single play as well as everything else that they're trying to do here. So you'll see a bunch of lefty hitters will have XBAs, expected batting averages, that are significantly lower, or rather expected batting averages that are significantly higher than their real batting average, because their real life batting average is getting hit by the shift. An expected batting average with a normal shift is showing what they would have hit if the shift wasn't in the league, which honestly is depressing. So, so let's see. After Valleca, we got Walker Buehler, another pitcher. So no surprise. We got Anderson Tejada, a guy who should never have been in the big leagues or close to the big leagues. I mean, he should probably be in Double-A right now. Absolutely got destroyed. You got Cam Gallagher. I've never been the biggest Cam Gallagher fan. He got lit up as well. Aaron Nola, I've said this. Oh no, that's Aaron Nola, not Austin Nola. Well, we will get it. We'll do an episode at some point where I'll talk about guys who have the most hype on their team, but it's also unjust. Because it's one thing to have hype and have it be just. A lot of people know who those guys are: Trout, Tatis, etc. But there is hype around Austin Nola, Aaron Nola's brother, because this is the pitcher. Austin Nola is the catcher, the one who plays for San Diego. There's a lot of hype around Austin Nola. It's completely undeserved. But we'll talk about that at some point in a future episode. So Kai, I believe is how you say his name. Tom, or Tom, I think. He's been terrible. Shouldn't be in the big leagues. Rengifo needs to be in Triple-A. You need to give him time in Triple-A. He's not getting enough big league at-bats to get both his lefty swing and his righty swing in order. He needs a lot more playing time. And I think that he's going to get stunted unless they just let him play down there for one season. And bring him up for the playoffs. Bring him up for the last month of the season or something like that. But I think you're gonna run into trouble with Rengifo unless he gets everyday playing time, and I don't think he's going to get that at the big league level. Danny Jansen, another guy who super overrated with the bat, also pretty overrated with the glove, although if he goes from a place of effort, he can be a good defender. It's just hard for him to sustain it. But I don't think, unless Jansen overhauls a few major things, that he's going to be a big league factor. I think the best bet Jansen has is to go down to AAA and get at bats. Maybe just put in Kirk and see what Kirk's got, but even Kirk hasn't really given them what Kirk did last year, and that's mainly because Kirk has trouble pulling the ball because you promoted Kirk from high A. Big surprise. Then you got Hernan Perez, who's been around the league quite a while. He's kind of been just like a super utility guy. But he's also been in the league because of that. He's been in the league because he's been a super utility guy for no other reason. He would have never been an everyday player. He didn't have any sort of specifically great abilities other than that he was a super utility guy and that at one point he could make fairly decent contact. So it makes sense that he's doing terrible. Kirilloff, another guy who's basically a ball to the major leagues. The analytics show that he should do a lot better than this, so I am expecting a jump in performance because this is frankly too bad. But I'm also not expecting him to be 30% above league average this year. I think that the best we could see from him is maybe 15% above league average, which says something because he's 132% below league average this year right now. Taveras, another guy just like his teammate, Anderson Tejada, completely rushed. I do not know what the Rangers were doing bringing both of those guys to the big leagues. So awful numbers. Please go back down to the minors and learn to get better. That being said, I'm being harsh here, sure, because these numbers are unfathomably bad. But Taveras and Tejada, they're toolsy guys. They are top prospects. So, they have it in them to be so much better than this. It's just I don't know why they were promoted. Put them back in Double-A, both of them. Let them play the whole year there. Next year, let them play at least half the year in AAA, then promote them. It's just really bad judgment, You got Abraham Toro, contact bat. I think I talked about him with Houston a little bit. I think he's going to do a lot better than this. He's very polished. Had good numbers in the minors. Much better defensively in corner outfield than at third by far, by a lot. It's mainly because of stride length. You got Alex Jackson, way too many strikeouts. When has Alex Jackson ever been big league ready? Don't know why he's getting time. Probably injuries or something. Atlanta really shouldn't be having problems there, but okay, whatever. Maldonado, typically terrible. Yep, that's him. Machin, that makes sense. Machin basically came up from high A, basically Double-A, but he wasn't even hitting that much in Double-A, high A. It was just a guy who walks about as much as he struck out. And now, because they brought him up all of a sudden before he was ready, strikeouts jumped through the roof. So definitely makes sense here. Campusano also rushed. The Padres got to leave him down longer. Honestly, let him play a little more in Double-A. Let him play a little in Triple-A. Call him up in August. This is a bad idea right now. He's probably the catcher that you're going to need for your playoff run. Don't mess this up. So I don't like that at all. I don't like the Campusanos at the big league level. That is not good. If the Padres are going to try and knock the Dodgers out of the way, or whichever other teams, Braves, they need Campusano to be ready. They need him to be effective. This might not do that. He needs to actually hit for a bit to be able to be called up with an approach and a refined swing and all that. You can't call him up this early. You got Jacoby Jones, who, my goodness. I understand some of the other numbers, I like to look at strikeout to walk rate when you're looking at really terrible players, That tells you a lot about approach, tells you whether they're aggressive, tells you whether they're patient. And then you can compare that to if they're more aggressive, then they're probably going to have, more balls sprayed around the field. If They're more patient. They're probably going to be like, stop to start. So a lot of pulling the ball. So you're going to probably see with patience, ISO. You're probably going to see with aggression, BABIP. But Jacoby Jones has neither ISO nor BABIP. His walk rate is 2% and his strikeout rate is 38.8%. Like, wow. Jacoby Jones should not be a big leaguer. He is like, that is, I mean, his walk rate almost goes into the strikeout rate like 20 times. Like that's insane. That's insane. It almost goes into it 20 times. Oh my God. Then you got Kevin Pillar. I think Kevin Pillar is going to have to adjust his approach. I think they're going to need to play him a little bit more regularly. And I think they're going to need to bat him at the bottom of the lineup. I think there's a few things that you need to do with Kevin Pillar in order to get him to be effective. I don't think that the Mets have the greatest ballpark for him, and I don't think that they have exactly the most beneficial league for him. So I can understand him having a down year, but he is nowhere near 102% below league average. I think that what you could probably expect from Kevin Pillar is probably 15 to 20% below league average, which doesn't sound that great, right? Like, 15, 20% below league average. That's not that great of a hitter. But when you realize he is an aggressive profile, that comes with just enough contact to make it work and just enough success on balls in play so that he has a sustainable batting average and a slugging percentage in the 400s. And then, so you're looking at a guy who's consistently getting hits, consistently getting, enough hard hits that he's going to be able to knock in some runs, guys who are on second and on third. He's also a guy who's a fantastic base runner on the year-to-year basis. He's a plus defender, especially if you put him in a corner outfield. He's not really a plus defender in center. He can play center, though. And then he also exhibits a couple of specific skill sets depending on how you want to specialize building your lineup. He hits lefties. So if you want to go with a lefty before him, so you have one lefty who hits righties and then he's the righty who hits lefties, that can help out your lineup really well. He hits for just enough power to kind of keep things going, but he's also a guy who can steal home and can steal home runs consistently and reliably, which are two really difficult skill sets to have alongside being able to hit for serviceable average and serviceable power without having a patient profile, basically attacking pitches in and around the strike zone aggressively. So even though he is typically putting up, a WRC plus about, 85, 15% below league average, because he's being aggressive, because he still has these, first off, aggression makes WRC pluses play up so long as it comes with serviceable contact or serviceable contact to strikeout ratios, or not contact to strikeout, contact to power ratios rather. So with a guy like Kevin Pillar being as aggressive as he is, that 85 actually plays up because he's able to hit higher caliber pitching from being able to hit pitches on the edges of the zone, even if they're from singles. So that plays up to maybe then 10% below league average. Well, if you have a guy who's a plus defender, who's a plus base runner, who's 10% below league average, and they can also do specific skills like steal home reliably, consistently, and rob home runs, having that in your 9 spot is actually really valuable because your 9 spot, you're not expecting more than like 10% below league average. That's a normal number offensively from your 9 spot. And you're getting it, with serviceable batting average, workable doubles power, and all of these other side skills like robbing home runs, stealing bases, stealing home, being a plus defender in corner outfield. So I think Pillar is a very underrated player. And I think if you're another team, you can look at him and be like, oh, he's doing terrible right now, so let me bring him in. I think he's another guy that fits great with Boston, and he should have stayed on Boston because he works really well with their ballpark. He works really well with the American League East. He spent a lot of time there. And I think even in Boston, I think you get the WRC plus to go up specifically because of the ballpark, specifically because he's been in the AL before, and specifically because there's no pitcher batting. So it's continuous lineup protection. He doesn't have to have the pitcher bat before him batting eighth. So I think he's a very underrated player. I think he'd be a well above average playoff caliber player if the right team can look at him underneath the right spotlight. And I really want to bring that attention, here, because now is the time to trade for him. I mean, look how bad these numbers look. So, and let's see if there's anyone else that's around that level of ineptitude, if you will. Let's see.
Don't be too mean.
So we got Christian Pache, another guy who I said was like not big league ready, totally rushed. I got a bit of ridicule from Braves fans for that. Lewis Brinson, who's been rushed for about 4 years now, so does not surprise me. Daniel Robertson, the league finally adapted back to him, so his numbers fell off a cliff. Brent Rooker, completely rushed. Absolutely unnecessary for Minnesota to be playing him. He should be in Double-A right now, like playing the full season there. Then Triple-A next year, playing the full season there. He needs to work out massive strikeout issues. I have no clue what Minnesota was thinking putting him in here. Guzman, I've always thought is super overrated. He keeps falling and falling and falling in performance. I don't know exactly what they saw in him. He does have a pretty swing, so I'll say that, but that's about it. That's all he has going for him. And I don't understand what else they saw in him. It just seems like a very, bad decision to choose him for at-bats. But anyway, Elias Diaz, another guy who's just not going to hit for you. But Colorado can hope, right? Because that's what they do. You got Nick Williams, terrible. John Nagowski, another guy. Now, John Nagowski's interesting, okay? I thought that he would actually initially do a little bit better than this because he's very polished. And, he's, St. Louis, right? And St. Louis usually does this thing with players who are, very polished, where they'll come in and they'll do great because the league doesn't know them. And Nagowski's doing terrible. And he's very polished. So I guess it's, every once in a while, there's a miss with that type of, strategy, if that makes sense. Todd Frazier looks done. Austin Hedges has been done, but he's got such great defense at catcher that they keep giving him chances. Seriously, the guy's got world-level defense at catcher. He makes – I won't quite say that he makes Yadi Molina look ordinary, but he makes Yadi Molina look like an arm-first catcher who doesn't really have elite secondary skills. And we know Yadi has elite secondary skills. It's just that Hedges has the elite arm with insane secondary skills. I've seen him cover more ground than I've ever seen any catcher cover. I've seen him make plays that catchers don't make. I mean, it's, he's a great defender. It's just he should still be in the minors. Or he should have been in the minors longer to work on hitting. The league has now accounted for Victor Reyes, so that makes sense to me. I've always thought of him as just I don't know, he can hit for contact, but there wasn't really much else going on there. And now it looks like they've got him. They've neutralized his ability to hit for contact, and now he's done. He's going to have to make some different approach changes, maybe become super patient in order to bring back some ability. I don't know if it's in him unless he goes back down to the minors. Hillard, I believe. I think it's Hillard. He's been a guy who I've always said was more of an athlete and a gym rat than a baseball player. And as you can see, everything he's hitting is pulled and crushed, right? But he's not hitting anything at all. So that makes sense. Sierra never was a hitter. One of the worst hitters in the big leagues. No one should expect him to hit. He's a speedster. That's his role. You use him, playoff series, if you have an extra spot available on the bench and, you got a guy on second base and you have him on your roster, you put him in, he steals second, or rather he steals third, right? And then, anything that gets put into play, he scores. That's his role. but he's not going to get that with Miami, and he's definitely not going to hit. Tom Murphy, another guy, not a hitter. He used his aggression to sacrifice contact to hit for power, but once pitchers figured out how to pitch to him, this is what happened. Power completely went away. Strikeouts stayed. He's been terrible. I don't really know Alan Trejo. Sounds like a pitcher, actually. He's been terrible, but at least there's not a lot of strikeout rate there. Josh Fuentes, I believe, is like Arenado's cousin, I think. And he's terrible because he's not Arenado. A lot of people were like, oh, well, he made this great defensive play. He looked just like Arenado. He's his cousin. Maybe he's going to teach his cousin how to be the next Arenado. That's not how it works.
That was actually a really great voice. I had no clue that you knew how to do that. That literally sounds like the kind of voice you'd hear on a actual television program for baseball.
I'm so used to this guy. I saw him in spring training and he hit the ball and it went really far. You gotta see it. It was just Balaka. No, I'm not. Carlos Pena, he does this whole Balaka thing whenever anybody hits the ball hard. So I don't want to dunk on Carlos Pena. Carlos Pena is actually one of the better guys out there. He's one of the better commentators out there. I love listening to him. So long as he's calm. Because he's got some great ideas, but when he gets a little animated, it can be slow it down. Whereas if my favorite is Eric Burns. Okay, oh my goodness, my favorite is Eric Burns. He when Burns goes off the edge, he goes way off the edge. So he knows it. Everybody knows it. He doesn't usually say things that he doesn't mean, but he also loves just being nuts. He's my kind of guy. It's the right kind of nuts. It's my kind of nuts. So, all right. We got next is Zach Wheeler here to jump back onto here. Another pitcher. Roman Quinn, base runner first. Schiebler, not a hitter. Alford, oh my God, Alford. If you were to look at Alford, you know what? I may have to pull up Anthony Alford just to show you guys what he looks like. Give me a second here. Because Anthony Alford, when I talk about guys who are literally, what do they call it? Like gym rats, those types of things, right? But not just, gym rats, but like an athlete as well. If you took Anthony Alford, I'm pretty sure if you brought him to the NFL Combine, that a team would draft him and put him on their team. Because this guy, watch this. Okay, let me do stop screen share for a second here. Let me do new screen share. Here we go. Tell you, the StreamYard screen share is a little bit different than Zoom, but
it definitely is. It's definitely.
This is Anthony difficult. Alford, okay? This is him. This guy right here, this absolute machine, right? I guarantee you, if he went to the Combine, right? If he went to the NFL Combine, he would be an NFL player. But he's one of the worst players in baseball because they just didn't develop him. They just threw him into the show. I'm going to see if we can get highlights. We probably can't get highlights. Can't get highlights without getting this taken off the internet.
Yeah,
but you know what?
Yeah.
You guys look at highlights and you guys tell me why Anthony Alford's not hitting. He's not hitting because he was just put in the big leagues. Oh, you can run that fast. Oh, you can lift those weights. Oh, you're super athletic. We'll put you in the big leagues. No. You got to show a guy how to hit a curveball. You got to show a guy how to go from having an expansive zone to slowly bringing the zone into pitches that you can hit. You got to do those types of things if you're going to be a big league hitter. You can't just be I run fast, I swing hard. You know, you have to refine things. Aramis Garcia is doing good, or not doing good rather. So that doesn't surprise me. He's like a guy who's been in AAA for years. Matt Carpenter's not doing good. Yeah, he's basically done. The only time you're going to see Carpenter hit like his old self is probably September, October, when he's got like 500 at-bats underneath his belt, so his swing is back. Like he needs like a full season in order to be his old self, which is like kind of sad at this point. He gets worse every year. But if the Cardinals can get to the playoffs, I mean, that's pretty valuable for them if he can be his old self at that point. And even then, I'm kind of crossing my fingers for the Cardinals' sake because their lineup would actually look a lot better with him doing well for them and being there in the playoffs. It's just I don't think that it's possible that this guy gets his swing in line until the last like 6 weeks of the season, maybe 5 weeks of the season. I think he's done. And I think you can look at Matt Carpenter's profile and you can see on a season-to-season basis, basically since his second year or third year in the league, he's gotten worse every year. You got Elvis Andrus, who after leaving the Rangers has somehow gotten worse offensively. He might be done. He's with Oakland. Got Lurie Garcia, or as the drunk White Sox fan a few years ago in spring training said, Lurie. Oh, goodness, that guy was crazy. Like all game with this Lurie thing. Lurie, hit the ball, Lurie. Oh, my God. I mean, it was funny. I think I got it on video. But, yeah, no, I can never not look at Lurie Garcia and like not hear in my head just reverberating Lurie. I'm not going to do that to you guys again. I can't. I'm not going to. No. Okay. All right. So we got Nick Ahmed, who was absolutely killing it after a shoulder issue last year. And he also has a reputation of, on a year-to-year basis, getting better and better and better. So I don't think that this is for real at all. I think at some point he's going to really take off. And I think he's going to surprise a lot of people. So I think that, yeah, he's a guy who's going to really rebound from this. Jeffers is another guy, another catcher, big surprise, who was rushed up to the big leagues, who should have just been left to develop in Double-A. He's got a beautiful swing. He's got a fantastic body for a catcher. He's going to be able to put on a lot of muscle and stay athletic and stay back there. But you don't rush a guy like this. It's a terrible idea to rush a guy like this because this is a guy who, if you don't rush him, can actually be a top 10 catcher for like 6-7 years. So I don't agree with this, and I don't understand why Astudillo, La Tortuga as they call him, is not getting, all the playing time at catcher. That just doesn't make sense to me. You're willing to give Luis Ariz, I think is how you say his name. You're willing to give him significant playing time every day last few years, but you're not willing to do it for Astudillo. That I don't like that. La Tortuga needs to play. So we'll do a couple more here, and then we'll do, I think, a couple of the pitchers, and then I think we'll call it a day. Kind of beautiful here. We got the sun setting right now. Look at this. Woo, woo.
I bet the weather's great out there. It's kind of, I think it's kind of like rainy out here.
Yeah, you can see that the sun's literally hitting my hand. Look at that. Wow. So, yeah, Arizona weather. There you go. So, you got Adam Hazley, who dropped off the face of the earth. He's been terrible. And, yeah, like I said, he dropped off the face of the earth. You got Geraldo Perdomo, top prospect, but again, don't bring him up too much this year. Like, he needs to stay in the minors. Do not rush him. You have a very special talent, Arizona. Keep him down there. Trust that Nick Ahmed's going to turn this around. That's your shortstop. You're good, bro. You got Mauricio Dubon for San Francisco, who has been terrible. Honestly, I think he needs to put on more muscle. He could use a little bit more time in AAA, just like to see if he could put on more muscle there. And you need more time for guys like Solano and La Stella, Flores, Crawford, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If you're San Francisco, and unless you're specifically committing to Mauricio Dubon as an outfielder, I mean, it just does. There's not really a lot of room at the end for him. Although, as a center fielder, it's not the worst idea. It's just I don't want to take a kid and put him in a situation where he's so uncomfortable that his growth goes backwards, and I've seen that happen a lot. So, you got Mickey Moniak, who top draft pick. But again, another guy who should not be at the big league level. He'll be back down in the minors before the first half's over. Goodness. And lastly, Yu Chang or Yu Chang Chang. Yu Chen Chang. I know him as Yu Chang. When he was in the minors, people called him Yu Chang. Shortstop, second base prospect, probably can play a little third, doesn't really have the greatest arm for it. Best spot for him is second base, and he hits balls that have top spin to them rather than backspin. So that's an interesting little tidbit about him. I don't know. He hasn't really hit in AAA, so I don't know why. I don't know why he's here. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like if you haven't hit in AAA, don't call the guy up. Now let's do pitching real quick, and then we'll call it a day. Well, Degrom, goodness gracious, that's what I've been talking about. Do you see this? Mm-hmm.
Well, actually, no, you're not sharing.
Oh, yeah.
You didn't go back to sharing.
Oh, Thank you. Oh, yeah. So here we go. Thank you about that. This is why we got Chris here. I'm playing. So check this. This is where DeGrom's at.
I'm gonna enlarge it a little bit more. Yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone
that is
definitely
insane.
See it now. Yeah.
0.5 ERA. That is insane. He's throwing over 100 miles an hour these days. Like, he's unbeatable. Mm-hmm. And then you got Cole, who's great. Burns, who's taken the next step. Glass now, who's taken seemingly the next step. It looks like his third pitch is working for him. It'll be interesting when he plays teams that he's played already for a second time, and they get used to that pitch, seeing what'll happen to his numbers. But it does look like it's a legitimate option for him. Kershaw's doing Kershaw things. Woodruff looked like he took another step. Evaldi looks like he's finally breaking out, but most people don't know it. Like, people who are in Boston, they like their pitching staff, but they don't know what they have yet in Evaldi from what I've seen. Like that ERA, when that ERA drops to either of these three numbers, Boston has a new ace. And that's important to mention because Sale's going to be back nearing the end of the season. So the Boston Red Sox of 2022 are actually going to have a few aces in their rotation. So take note of that. Boston's coming back. Nola's Nola. Doesn't surprise me. Boyd is going to get lit up. Mark my word. Like the big thing that is obvious here is look how low that home run rate is for the kind of lefty that he is, that contact pitching lefty. That ground ball rate is minuscule. He's not getting any grounders, and he's not getting any strikeouts whatsoever. Like, XFIP knows what's up, 5 ERA. Trevor Rogers, very huge lefty who throws 3 pitches and throws very hard. I do believe this is real. I do believe that this is an emergence. I do believe that, like, we started to see it in spring training, which is why I started to put him on my lists before the season started. And now he's finally doing it, which is awesome. Like, it's not just spring training. It's not just like 4 starts in spring training. It's 5 starts into the season. And last year, his numbers would have been fantastic, except for, I believe, 2 terrible appearances that, like, offset his entire end line. So like this is real. I think this guy is very much now a big league factor, which is also pretty cool to see because Miami also has Sixto Sanchez who's coming along. So Miami's starting to develop some pitchers, some actual arms, and then of course you add Sandy Alcantara, and that's 3 really good arms. Like Miami's really they're building something. They're building something really big. It may take a couple of years, with Chisholm and JJ Bleday to come along, and Herrar, or I believe that's how you say it, Herrar Encarnacion. Love him, love his swing. I think he's very underrated. Saw him in the Arizona Fall League. No, I think Miami's building something. I think they're building towards something really big. It's kind of cool to watch Jeter do that, being a Yankee fan, Zach Eflin has been fantastic. He seems willing to pitch to contact in the zone just to be an effective arm, which is smart. That's a smart move for him because I don't think he's ever going to be a swing and miss guy. So if he was going to be successful, this was the only way. So, really good on you for turning yourself into someone. I don't think you're an ace. I don't think he's going to be an ace. But I do think you're looking at a very legitimate number 3 starter instead of a guy who's like a 4 or a 5. I think he's a solid 3 year in, year out. I think that's what you can depend on him for, at least for the next few seasons. Then you got Joe Musgrove, who's Joe Musgrove. I've been saying this for a few years that Joe Musgrove is one of the most underrated players in the major leagues, and he's going to break out, and he started to at the end of last year, and now he's continued it on to this year, and you're looking at one of the best pitchers in the major leagues. So, yes, for real, completely for real. Joe Musgrove is for real. Duffy's not for real. I'm just going to be honest with you. His handedness is going to become a problem with home runs, especially given how low his ground ball rate is. I think you're still looking at a plus starter, but I think you're looking at a guy who's probably better than Zach Eflin rather than a guy who's even close to approaching Nola or even Eovaldi. So, but that's how I feel about Duffy. I think Duffy is he's a top of the line 3 starter, about as good as they get. I don't think the ERA is for real, and I think the FIP is ignoring how high the home run rate has gotten and typically goes for him, especially given how few ground balls he's even getting this year. Like 25% ground balls is nothing. Like that's literally that's nothing. And when the other numbers, xERA and xFIP, both have you at like 3.5, 4, that's probably where you're at. But that's still really good 3 starter, who's still getting strikeouts, who's not walking people, who's probably getting in trouble with the homer only because of his handedness. You got Shane Bieber, the best pitcher in the game, other than the big 2, being, Cole, Degrom. I guess you could probably throw Scherzer in there, but Scherzer's getting older, so I don't want to jump the shark there. Guys decline. So I do think Scherzer's still a great pitcher. I still think he's an ace. But to have him there with Cole in his prime, Degrom in his prime, Bieber in his prime, I don't want to keep the expectations that high. I think he's in the next tier. Is like maybe the top of the next tier is Scherzer. I don't know. I want to put him there. I want to put Scherzer there, but I also don't want to have expectations of him being something that he's not, and then people are upset. You know what I mean? Because Scherzer's too good of a player to, even if he does a down year, to be disappointed by. Given what Cole's being paid, I could understand being disappointed if he had a down year. Given what we saw out of Bieber last year, I could really understand being disappointed if he has a down year. Or DeGrom, if DeGrom has a down year, I don't think that's possible. If DeGrom has a down year, that's a massive disappointment. But if Scherzer dropped off a little bit, it would be understandable. So that's why there's a bit of a separation there for me. Although I love Scherzer as a fan, from the point of a fan, not from an analytics standpoint, because I do love him from an analytics standpoint, but that's where the rest of my argument comes in. From a fan's perspective, I want him on that tier. Berrios, who this would be a career year if he can keep the ERA that low, but I've never seen him do anything like that. So I hope he does. He's always had the potential to really take off, but I've always had concerns about him. And if you look at the xERA, and you look at he's still a fly ball pitcher, the home run rate is unsustainably low. Knowing his past, I do have some worries about Berrios, especially as hitters heat up, because if you get redirectional with the balls that you're hitting against him, you can get the balls to carry. At least that's what I've found. I think that's because he puts so much backspin on them. But anyway, moving on. Darvish is an ace. He's been an ace, top 10 pitcher in the game. I don't have much else to say there. I think that's very, very straightforward. Dez Gilfani, that's an interesting. I need to examine Dez Gilfani again, because Dez Gilfani was a top prospect, and San Francisco is one of the smarter organizations out there. As much as people like to crap on them because they haven't won in a bit. They discover guys all the time. They build bullpens really well. They keep players who people think are well beyond their prime, but the players have better usage on their team because of how they're using them, because how they're putting their roster together, than when the Phillies decided to keep Utley and Howard and Rollins. When the Phillies decided to do that, they just blocked up their roster. It made it hard for them to make other moves. The Giants have never had to spend that much money, A. B, them keeping guys that they've kept has never blocked them from being able to cycle new guys in and out. So I think the Giants, they've been told that they can't move certain guys, I think. Because of the championships, because they hadn't won a World Series in ever before the 3 and 5 years, 2010, 2012, 2014. But now all of a sudden you're looking at the Giants rotation and they're developing. I won't say developing, but they're finding guys who were great in the minors, and they're kind of finding a way to give them back that ability, find what was working for them then, and bring it back. Kevin Gausman, I think he's another great example. He's actually right down here on the list. Dez Gilfani, I think, might fall into that category, but I want to look more into Dez Gilfani. One thing that I will note: strikeouts are there, walks are minuscule, which is great. Weak contact is there, and the contact's on the ground. So across the board, 94.4, he's throwing hard. Across the board, all of the numbers love him. The number that likes him the least is the one that's dependent on him keeping the ball on the ground, which he seems really able to do. And that number only has him at a 3.4 or 3.24 ERA. That's an ace ERA, and all the other numbers have him lower than that. We might be seeing an emergence there. So that's cool to see. John Means, super hyped up. I don't expect this to continue at all. Means to me is much more of a 3-starter. And I think as time goes on and the league gets to know him, he might even be a 4-starter. That's a personal opinion. And similar things with Kyle Gibson. I do not think Gibson is anything close to what he's doing here. I think this is just early season type stuff. As the season goes on, I think he's gonna the spin that he has to give balls and movement that he has to give balls to get that ground ball rate. I think that's going to start to go away, and he's going to start to get hit really hard. That's just my personal opinion on Gibson. Ground ball guys are really great at controlling ground balls. Fly ball guys are really good at controlling fly balls. So when you get a ground ball guy who's in a small ballpark like the Texas Rangers ballpark, he's not going to be able to control the balls that are hit into the outfield. And as the season goes on and he gets hit harder and harder and harder, the ERA is going to go up because his home run rate is going to go through the roof. If you look at all the guys on here, the only other guys that have 0 home run rates Brandon Woodruff, who's been an ace for a couple of years now. Evaldi, who's throwing 100 miles an hour, over 100 miles an hour. So it makes sense that no one's able to square it up. Look at all those grounders at that velocity. I mean, look at that 97.7 with his fastball. You see that right there? Goodness gracious. So, but to bring it back down to Means, or rather to Gibson rather. Gibson is definitely getting, the grounders that you saw with Evaldi, but like Gibson is doing so with a much worse fastball velocity and a much higher walk rate as well. The walk rate's a full point higher, and the strikeout rate's also a full point lower. But like I said, the big one's the velocity. He's throwing 93.6. Evaldi's 97.7. So as the season goes on, I think that Gibson's ERA ERA is going to go way up. Velocity is going to go down a bit. And I think he's really going to get hit in the home run ballpark that is the Texas Rangers ballpark. They're not a very good team. So I think it's kind of going to snowball a little bit for them. Got Urias, who's an ace. Like he's the real deal. He's like the real deal. And so is his teammate right here, Walker Buehler. My only issue is that in literally, are you ready for this, Chris?
Mm-hmm.
In 25 innings, okay, which in all likelihood is the next 4 starts, okay? In 25 innings, Julio Urias will reach his innings limit from last year. That's right. During the regular season last year, Julio Urias threw 55 innings. That means he will reach the innings limit like within the next month. So this is why I worry about him. Like, you're going to keep him in the rotation clearly because of the way he's performing and because of the way the team is constructed. You don't have a ton of options of just like taking him out of the rotation unless you're going to put him in the bullpen, which could stunt him. Okay. Mm-hmm. I don't know how he's going to get his innings. I don't know, like, and if they put him in the rotation to keep him there, I don't know how he's going to stay healthy. You don't go from 55 innings to 155 innings. That just doesn't happen. And like he's had, he's like, I think the maximum amount of innings he's reached in past seasons was like 100. So like, I worry about how late into the season he's going to be able to hold up. That being said, this guy's an ace. Like in terms of whenever he's on the mound, he is an ace. That's the kind of guy who doesn't walk people, strikes people out, weak contact all day, hard thrower for a lefty. Just makes you look silly sometimes. When he wants to, at least. The rest of the time he gets weak contact. We got Buehler here on his team. Buehler does have the innings built up. One thing that's really interesting, though, looking at Buehler, is his ERA looks awesome. His FIP looks awesome. His xFIP looks awesome. But his xERA looks terrible. So I got to figure out why there's such a disparity there. Because, like, everything else says that he should be an ace. He's not walking anyone. He's striking out enough people. The home run rate is like normalized, meaning like he's not going to allow any more power than he already has. He could allow less. So like he could be even better if that, starts to be managed at an above average rate. Right now it's a very average number. So Buehler's an ace. Mailey's interesting. I didn't think that Mailey had enough swing and miss stuff to get this number of strikeouts. But you go Mailey. Like this is shocking to me. I never thought Mailey would put up numbers like this. Truth be told, I think he's more of a 3-starter. But like looking at these numbers, he could be a top of the line 3-starter at that. Before the year, I thought he was more of a 4-starter. Now, 3 to top of the line 3 from what I'm seeing. Even with the elevated walk rate, you're going to get an elevated walk rate when you're reaching for that many strikeouts. And I think that's a new approach for him. I don't mind that. Then you got Gaussman. It's another guy that the San Francisco Giants found. But it's interesting. Different analytics say different things about him. Different people like him for different reasons. His xERA and his xFIP don't seem to like him too much. Like he's much more of a like 4-starter by those. But by most other analytics, he's an ace. So that's kind of interesting. He'll probably end up settling into a 2-starter role long term, I think. Jacob Junis, I think in large part he's taken off because he feels comfortable pitching in front of that defense in Kansas City. But I'm not going to lie. I think Junis probably bounces back, way back, ends the season as probably like 4-starter, maybe a 3-starter. Kind of leaning 4-starter for him, though. Not a bad one, though, an elite 4-starter, but I think he's probably going to end up as a 4-starter. Alcantara, I think, is probably going to end the season as a 2-starter, but there are people I know who think that he's actually an ace. So that could give, Miami, and like I said, they got like a bunch. They got Sixto Sanchez, they got Alcantara, they got Trevor Rogers, they got Pablo Lopez right down here, who looks really good in his own right. So maybe they got 4 of them. I'll tell you, Miami's building something. We got Zach Wheeler right here, who's usual Zach Wheeler stuff. The numbers show that he'll basically have an ERA between like 3.1 and 3.6. That's the usual Zach Wheeler. He's a number 2 starter who in a good year is an ace. But because also of his way of producing, he can also kind of be an ace even in a bad year, but it's only in big games that he shows up as an ace. It's not a consistent thing. That's why I don't, like big game ace, if that makes sense. So good year, ace. Bad year, number 2 starter who in big games is ace. Charlie Morton, ERA's been terrible, but all of the other numbers are usual Charlie Morton numbers, 3.4, 3.3 ERA type stuff. So expect that he's going to get a lot better in terms of his ERA. Matt Harvey, lots of grounders, no walks. I'm not saying Matt Harvey's back, but he might have turned himself into a 4-starter, which is fine. If Matt Harvey ended up for his career becoming a 4-starter, that's a normal career for a big league pitcher. It'd be super disappointing given how he started, but honestly, I'll be real with you. Like, there was a high chance that he didn't have a career after that. There's a high chance that he was never going to be effective at the big league level again. So, no, I think that Harvey might be a 4-starter at this point in time. So that's good for him, kind of reviving himself. Then we got Hyun-Jin Ryu, who is an ace. The only problem is that he doesn't pitch full seasons. He doesn't pitch 180 innings. But I don't have a problem with him not doing that, because he's probably the best lefty pitcher in baseball outside of like the big guys. Like, let's see, who would be the only people that could give him competition? Kershaw, but Kershaw's not a big game guy, and Kershaw also doesn't go tons of innings. Blake Snell could give him a run for his money. Ohtani, if he has a full year, he's healthy. But yeah, there's not tons of elite lefty pitchers in the game. So even though Hyun-Jin Ryu doesn't go tons and tons and tons of innings, he's kind of about as good as they get from the left side. You know what? Let's reverse this. Let's look at the guys who have put up the worst WAR for pitch.
Actually, we're running out of time.
Oh, run it. All right, that's fine.
Yeah. So
yeah. This is honestly, no one wants to hear about the worst pitchers in the league anyway. it gets bad. Like without diving in, like this is how bad it gets.
Hold on, I'm gonna
like, yeah. Although I do want to say, actually now looking at it, it's not necessarily like it's a bunch of bad players.
Mm-hmm.
It's more that it's a bunch of guys who've gotten terrible starts. Like Maeda, Minor,
different way of looking at it.
Castillo, Keuchel, Giolito, Bundy. None of those are really what I'd call bad starters. So, all right. Well, everybody who tuned in, thank you for tuning in. We were going live every single Thursday. So definitely join us again when we go live next Thursday. And I think next Thursday we're going to be bringing the first version of our power rankings.
Yep.
And we can talk about that on here with y'all's. And I don't know. I have a couple surprises for that show as well. So be sure to tune in. It's going to be atypical of all of our podcasts. It's going to be a little bit different. I'm not gonna say what it is, but it's with regards to player analysis. I'm gonna have a little bit of a surprise, a little bit of a drop. So, yeah, that's my ma right there. Hi, ma.
Oh.
Yeah. So that's our show. Thank you for tuning in.
And don't forget to hit that subscribe button. That way I sound like a broken record at the end of every single podcast, at the end of every single live stream. Hit that subscribe button. That way you get updated whenever we publish something, whenever we go live. And that's it. See you next time.